Merry Christmas or Happy Holiday if you don't celebrate Christmas. I thought to make a painting video for you to enjoy over the holiday. If you're an introvert like me, holiday can be fun, but draining with all the gatherings. So hopefully this little video can bring you some peace and relaxation during your well-deserved alone time. Okay, so this is the painting that we're going to do. You can look at the left for the reference photos that I'm using. This is Emerald Lake in Banff, Canada. I've been there once a long time ago. It was very beautiful. However, these photos weren't taken by me. I found them on the royalty-free stock image website. I thought they looked absolutely beautiful with snow and the warm light from the lodge and the beautiful reflection on the lake. So the reason I have two photo references is because while they look very similar, the value is a little bit different. The image on the top is taken in a darker day. So I am not quite sure if it's the camera exposure setting is different or it's just overall a darker overcast day. But I like the value on the top because that makes the lighting on the lodge brighter. I also like the reflection on the lake a little bit better on the top. It is a little bit more blurry. That means the shutter speed is a little bit lower when the person took the photo. So that's why you see that motion blur on the lake because the water is moving no matter how still it is. So I will take the reference for the lighting, the overall value, and the reflection from the top photo. The bottom photo, however, it includes a little bit more view, and I do like the bridge, the pathway on the left. That makes the overall composition a little bit more interesting. So I will use both photos for the reference. Now I am doing a drawing. I try to make it as simple as possible, even though the lodge itself can be a little bit complex. So as you can see, I include part of the bridge and move the lodge a little bit to the right so it's not dead in the center. So erasing some of the pencil lines to clean that up before I start to paint. So we haven't got any snow during this winter yet in the Pacific Northwest. Despite that, it's almost the end of the year. We do get quite a bit of rain, as always, in the Seattle area. You can probably hear it right now in the background. I do miss snow quite a bit. We didn't get a lot of snow last winter either, but we can still paint. So I start off by pre-wetting the lodge area and paint some warm color for the light, and now I pre-wet the sky. The overall value for the sky is going to be a little bit darker than usual, so I will reference from the photo on the top with the sky slightly darker so that the light on the lodge can feel brighter. You can only go so bright in a physical painting, so the lightest value on your watercolor is the white of the paper. So in order for it to feel brighter, you need to darken the scene around it. So as you can see, I am painting the sky with a little bit of value. The sky color is a pretty simple grayish color. I use cobalt blue, burnt umber with a little bit of alizarin crimson to give that little purple shade. Now because I pre-wetted the sky and then I do a pretty big wash on it, the wash is still quite moist. So I can paint some clouds wet onto wet. If you look at the photo on the left, you see that there is a pretty thick cloud behind the lodge in the background, and half of the mountain is covered by it. So I want to do something similar. Now you might think that I am going pretty heavy-handed on those clouds, but because I'm doing it wet onto wet and the paper is quite moist right now, when it is dry, the color will fade quite a bit. so I am compensated a little bit. So I am using a small nylon brush and use the tip of the brush and paint some soft detail for the mountain in the back. It is in the back, and because of the fog, I want to make them looking nice and soft and pushed back. This is a very fun stage if you know what you're doing. And once again, choose the right brush and the right stage is quite important. So use a small nylon brush. So in this case, I'm using the white brush in my brush set. The bristle is made from nylon. It doesn't soak up a lot of water. So it's easier to mix a drier mixture to avoid cauliflower edges in your painting. Now I'm moving down to the rooftop of the lodge. And then I start to paint sort of a middle value for the lodge. And at this stage, I'm trying to be careful not to overdo it. I want to preserve as much light as possible. If there are areas that I need to push the dark, we can always do that later. And that's one of the things with watercolor, you want to proceed with caution. But at the same time, you are also working against the drying time. So there's a little bit of the balance between trying to do things as quickly as possible, have the right timing, but at the same time, you want to make sure what you're doing each stage. You don't want to overpaint anything. You don't want to make anything too heavy right off the bat, because if you're making a wash too dark, it's very hard to make it light again. You can wash it off and stuff, but if you do that in a large area, it's not going to look good. That's why practice a lot is the key to be good at watercolor, aside from just learning the in and out of how watercolor works, because it trains your brain to think quickly, and experience will help you to paint more confidently. It's kind of like knowing somebody. The longer you spend time with them, the more you know what they're like, and then you will be able to spend time with them with ease, and you can work with them more efficiently, just like painting with watercolor. So now I continue to add a little bit of middle value details. You can see that I add the trees in the background on the left. It kind of blends with the mountain in the back, which is what I want because those trees are very far into the distance. And the bridge, I give it an initial middle value wash. And now I'm working on the pine trees. They are more or less in the middle ground, so they are a lot more clear and a lot darker than the background. So there's some snow accumulated on the pine tree, on the leaves and the branches, and I am not able to capture all the details. So what I did is I tried to paint a little bit faster in some strokes to leave out the texture of the cold pressed paper. And that's going to give the illusion of some white spot, some snows on the trees. Now I did leave a little bit too much white. So later on you will see that it start to look a little bit noisy and I have to paint over them. Painting these trees always reminds me of Bob Ross, so always get that happy tree vibe when I'm painting pine trees. So I also sort of inspired by the way he paints pine trees. Of course, he's using oil, I'm using watercolor, so a little bit different, but I'll also kind of start with painting a tree trunk, and then I kind of zigzag it, trying to get that branches and leaves out. Instead of trying to paint a lot of details, I use the brush to do the work for me, just like Bob. The video is sped up because I spent a lot of time painting wet onto wet in the background, and also a lot of time doing these trees. Gets a little bit repetitive, but if you are interested to see a full unedited demo while I talk through the process, consider joining my Patreon for about $5 a month. You can join and leave anytime you want. So for a price of a cup of coffee, actually a cup of coffee is more expensive than $5 nowadays plus tip, you get around 2 to 3 demos each month. Then there are full-length demo from an hour to 2 hours, depends on what I paint. I usually try to mix it up with portrait and scenery. Sometimes you got 2 scenery, sometimes you get a still life. Just something you can do to support me, to support this channel. Of course, I will continue to put out free video on YouTube, so you absolutely don't have to do the Patreon. But if you're already a Patreon member, I really thank you for your support, and I hope you're getting some value out of it. Or if anything, you just hear me rambling and painting for 2 hours, which some people told me is very relaxing and comforting. So that's something maybe you can consider as well, if you have trouble sleeping. Anyways, coming back to the painting, I continue to paint a little by little, trying to darken some part of the lodge. Again, I try to proceed with caution. I don't want to make anything too dark at this stage unless there's something that I'm absolutely sure is going to be dark. So painting some dark windows. It's kind of wet onto wet. The wash is still a little bit moist, so it comes out a little bit soft, which is okay. You don't need everything to be very clear and detailed, as long as the value comes out right. So I'm using my small nylon brush, getting some details in. And this is the challenging stage, especially mentally, because it's not finished yet. It's kind of half done, and it doesn't feel like it's looking really that good yet. There's still quite a few things that I need to do to make it come together. So need to have faith and proceed. I paint 2 simple logs on the lake, and then I start to pre-wet the lake so that I can do the reflection. Again, soft reflection, that's why I pre-wet it. But I do want to preserve some light spot. That's why I paint around some of the light area. Also, try to be mindful of where you put in a reflection. It should mirror whatever is on the surface. So the position, the location of the house, the lodge, and the trees in the back. You don't have to make it super accurate. It is a hand-painted artwork after all, but it needs to make sense. So continue to add some darks in the reflection, wet onto wet. Try to finish the reflection in one go while it is still moist, because if it's dry, you need to re-wet it again to paint some soft reflections. And the more you re-wet it, the dirtier it might get. So to save some time and some hassle, try to finish it in one go. This also kind of forces you not to overwork it as well. It is a reflection, so let's keep it nice and soft and subtle. So now you start to see this coming together with the reflection in. Now I do want the light on the lodge to be a little bit brighter, so I start to darken the things around it. That being said, I did think I paint a little bit too much, so I come back with a paper towel and dab it out some of the areas to make it a little bit brighter. So that's something you can do when you paint it and the paint is still quite wet. If you know that it is a little bit too much, you want to change it, you can just come back in with a paper towel, press it and get rid of the paint that you just put on, and that usually works pretty well. Now you can see the trees are a little bit too light after it's dry, so I come back in with darker values and add some more dark, especially next to the roof, just to create a contrast. Now I am using a hair dryer to blow everything dry because I want to do a glaze in the sky. The sky comes out still a little bit too light for me, and also the snow there, they shouldn't be white. So I need to make sure it is completely dry. So I did a glaze on the sky and a little bit of background. So that just gives it a little bit of darkening for the background, and that makes the light on that lodge a little bit brighter. This also gives us an opportunity to add a little bit more wet onto wet details as needed. Okay, try to bring some of the light back by doing a little bit of scrubbing. Add the dark shadow underneath the bridge. Just some final adjustment, painting away some of the excessive lights on the tree. And I added a few snowflakes. It is an overcast day, so some of the snowflake might actually be a bit darker than the sky. So that gives some sense of snowing. And we are finished. I hope you like this painting and I hope you enjoy this process. So even though I haven't experienced any snow this winter, but the ability to do a painting helps me to experience it in my mind. So that's it for this video. If you are still watching, thank you so much. Consider giving it a like for more simple painting video just like this one. I will try to make another video at the very end of this year, reviewing some of the work I did this year and some updates. So be sure to subscribe and ring the bell icon so you won't miss out when a new video is coming out. Once again, Merry Christmas and Happy Holiday. This is Eric from Cafe Watercolor. See you next time. God bless.